Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. I'm your host, Rebel Saklocha, and today I am so excited to introduce you to Erin Christopher. She is the founder of Boca Brand, a company that's reshaping how riders think about gear, communication, and comfort for their horses. Erin, thanks for being here.
Hey Rebel, thanks for having me on.
Well, you have a pretty cool story that intertwines your background as a horse trainer with entrepreneurship, and I'm so excited to learn more about the product that you have created and the problems that you have solved. But first, I want to get to know just a little bit more about you. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the equine world.
So I am not from a horse family whatsoever. My dad's a physician. My mom was our high school volleyball coach, and I have two older sisters that neither one of them really rode. But I did convince my parents when I was young from seeing a horse from the get go that can I please have a lesson in between dance and softball and volleyball. They somehow let me try to fit that in, and that was just it. So I started taking lessons and throughout high school, I started working for a gal that taught me how to break colts and ride cutting horses, and then also taught me how to barrel race. So after high school, I had the opportunity to go into Troy University's rodeo team, where I actually didn't even barrel race at the time there. I didn't have a horse fast enough, but I was good at goat tying and I was good at roping at the time. So I did that, and it was a blast until Troy unfortunately cut their program. Then I transferred to Auburn University. I transferred to Auburn University. And in between semesters there, I started doing internships out in California with Jenny Sherbo, who was all around cowgirl, reign cow horse champion, reining, cutting. She roped, she barrel raced. She was Miss Rodeo California in that area, and she's just awesome. And she really took the reins and helped me steer myself into a direction that was more beneficial for with what I want to do career wise while I was still at college in Auburn. So I ended up going out there three more times and loved it. But once I reached my peak there, we started isolating more of what I wanted to do, which I just fell in love with the idea of the futurity world with barrel horses. And she put me in contact with another gal, Kelsey Treehorn, and Collinsville, Texas, and I went down there and worked for Kelsey for a while. And then after in between semesters, and after I graduated Auburn, I moved out there and worked with Kelsey for a while. And at that time, I'd had client horses come in, and because I was really good at starting colts and was trying to put a good handle on barrel horses, and so I had a guy that had sent some horses out there with me, and he invited me to come back to Georgia and started his program. He wanted to build his program and asked for my advice on it because he comes back for more of his horses were like foundation, like Blue Valentine, Hancock, and he wanted to dabble in the barrel horse industry, and that's what I love to do. And he actually, our families kind of grew up together. I used to go with his aunt out to their farm and ride horses. He has a large family that has large plantations and lots of horses out there in Mariana, and he would let me come out there and ride. And he also dated my sister for 9 years, so that kind of helped. So I was like, okay, great, and I would go to church every Sunday, and after church on Sunday, his aunt would take me up to the farm to go ride. So that was our connection. And so whenever he asked me to come help build his program in Georgia, I of course leapt at the chance and trained some fraternity colts there and got the program started from my experience in Texas. Went out to the Judd Little sale, went out to the Victory Farm sale, and brought back some really nice bred horses. And he also bred some mares, some studs that I had recommended 2 years prior as well. So we had the ones from Victory Farms, Judd Little, and then we had his own bloodlines and their offspring. And so I got to build the program there, and I was there for about 2 years and trained horses and trained fraternity colts and met a lot of incredible people. And that lasted ever so long. And after that, I got kind of burned out. The horse industry is kind of, interesting when it comes to keeping a job. And in the horse trainer world, there's not many contracts and there's a lot of gray area. So I took a job in Atlanta and worked in a cubicle, used my degree from Auburn, and hated life. And I had an idea back when I was training full time with these curb straps. And I actually had the idea when I was working for Kelsey Treehorn. We were in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and she was had a horse named Elvis, and there was a steel beaded curb that was on a welded bar. I think Dave Elliott made that one, And I liked the idea behind it, but it was solid. And I was like, this would be cool if, it could flex or, have some different color beads. That was just my first thought. And then I didn't do anything about that until like 2 years later. While I was in Georgia working, I made a couple, and then they kind of fell apart, and I wrote them, worked with them on my fraternity colts, and just kind of put the idea out of mind because I was so busy. And then it took literally working in a cubicle in Atlanta to say, okay, well, let's try this again. And here we are, a year and 9 months later.
Wow.
So,
Well, it sounds like every experience you've had to date has really been a building block in moving you closer to building the brand to what it is now. And of course, obviously, there's a lot of momentum moving forward too. But what are some key things you learned during your time as a horse trainer? I know on your website, you mentioned that a lot of people sometimes just think that changing the horse's bit is going to solve all of your problems when there may be an underlying issue there. What are some of those things that you learned from your experience in the industry training barrel horses that kind of guided you in developing your curb straps?
well, if I don't know if you barrel race, but if you do, or if you talk to enough barrel racers, like every horse is so different. I mean, there's certain bloodlines. People say they ride certain bloodlines. Each horse has like a certain feel to them, which is true to an extent. You kind of know what you're going to expect with, if they're a little bit more reactive or more on the sluggish side, or kind of late bloomers. But all of them, if you look at any kind of horse trainer's tack room, there's going to be 100 bits, like especially if they do it full
At
time.
least.
Probably more, right? But 9 out of 10 times, if you look at those bits, there's either going to be a chain welded curb on there that came with the bit from the first day they bought it, a leather curb, or a piece of hay string, or some other apparatus that is not really sold on the shelves that people make. Um, and that's just kind of the industry standard. So I, just in my experience with riding different horses, we would change bits. And even when I was working with Kelsey, I remember her, when my first summer there, she would order a new bit, and it was usually Dave Elliott, something off Facebook Marketplace. Try it out, didn't like it, post it, buy another one. Like she was constantly trying to find, the most versatile one. And there's like two bits that I usually like my go-tos that, will work pretty much with any horse. Maybe not during a run, but like during slow work or things like that. But like I said, 9 times out of 10, whenever you go buy these bits, they come with a chain curb. And when we're training these colts, they eventually get either too strong or they're too sensitive. And some of them don't need the chain curb, but a lot of trainers don't think that. They think they just need a different bit, or they just take a, curb trap off completely, which is fine. I mean, it just depends on the horse. So also, whenever you're training colts, they might get too strong. So they may need something a little bit more than just a chain flat linked curb chain. So my thought process, whenever I was trying to figure out, a more comfortable way, more versatile, and maybe different apparatuses that could better benefit a horse, instead of going and buying a new bit, maybe just change the pressure that is on their jaw and see how they work. Because you'll notice some horses that if they're elevating on the backside of a turn, and stepping off, people think, oh, I got to hold them harder in the turn, put something heavier on them, heavier bit. Well, what if they're just avoiding your hand because they hate the chain curb pressure already that's there? I have solved so many people's problems with just telling them to go something lighter, and the silicone curbs have been fantastic for that. That's called our Boca Elite. But and sometimes some of these horses just need leather, but a lot of the times they get too strong for leather. And what's cool about the Boca Elite curbs, the flex roller curbs, is that they have grip because of the multiple pressure points, but they all squish down. So it helps soften the rider's hands technically whenever they leverage the bit, whenever they engage the reins. And a lot of the horses have quit elevating and will stay smoother and more flat in their turns and kind of work it out that way. And then you have horses that are just, fire breathing dragons, the Corona cartels, dash of fame, like just, rockets, that have learned to get to a point, and then maybe afterwards when they're sold down the road to maybe like a kid, or somebody who just has really light hands, but during their run they're just going past maybe a stride past the barrel, or they're having trouble stopping in the alley and they're already pushing through their current curb chain setup. Our Boca B line is the steel beaded curbs, same principle, multiple pressure points, but they're hard steel beads, and it creates a prolonged more pressure across their jaw while flexing to their jaw. But it helps slow them down and slow down their feet. It helps engage their hindquarters, collection. It is a much more reactive feeling than just a flat curb chain, because they can actually lean into that. They can't exactly lean into the steel beads. So that has been great for that. And then on top of that, I have one that has been a game changer for select horses. I don't say this for every single one of them, because I have put bungee straps on some of my curbs, for a more delayed reaction. And I recommend those for horses that are transitioning to a curve for the first time, aka a 2-year-old that you're just starting, that is now being, switched from an O-ring to a shank bit for the first time, that is feeling that pressure instead of just immediate grab, which I'm sure people for the most part don't just throw a chain on there. They'll put, leather, but it extends, the straps will extend and it gives a more delayed reaction. So it's softer to the colts. And then for an open horse, I would say it's great for horses that they're not going to run off with you, that are trained, but maybe your reaction time is off. And it's really solved, especially a friend of mine. She has an awesome horse, but it's like every single time she goes and runs him, he's an open horse at rodeos. He has a different first barrel every single time. And her timing, she could just never get her timing just right. Well, the Boca bungees have delayed her reaction time to where if she pulls at the wrong time, it delays it. So the horse can still work and not be as reactive to her. And that has solved her problem on her first barrel. And so that was so cool to see. So it is exploded into different, ways of just for different horses. I never knew it was going to get this big, but that was my initial thought, was that, why do we depend on just curb chains and leather straps or hay string for that matter, when there could be something made that's better? And there hasn't been until what I've made.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to backpedal just a little bit in case there are any non-barrel racing horse people listening to this, just to learn more about your entrepreneurial story. In like fourth grader terms, explain what the role of a curb strap is. Perhaps I should have had you lay that foundation first.
Absolutely. So a curb strap is essentially, well, I like to dumb it down to people or just explain it to people, is it's the brakes to your horse. So majority of horses will be trained once they transfer out of an O-ring to a leverage bit, that whenever the reins are engaged and the shank is rotated, there's a strap that pushes up into their jaw. And horses are trained to drop their head, and it also applies pull pressure. It engages the bridle to where the leather strap behind the horse's ears. That's where the horse's pole is. It puts pressure right there, where it makes the horse drop its head and collect. So round out. The horse will round out and engage their hindquarters more. And you teach horses that once they do that and their feet slow down, you relieve the pressure. So as horses go through their training, once they feel that pressure, they know to slow down or collect up, or both, essentially.
Yeah. Well, we'll obviously include links to your website in the show notes so people can see what these curb straps actually look like in practice. But I'd love to know, once you had this idea of, this might be a solution to a problem that I'm experiencing and that I'm noticing others are having. It's one thing to have the idea, but what made you actually take action and say, hey, this might actually be a viable business idea to pursue?
Right. So honestly, it was my friend Nicole Walker. She came out with a company. She made some new version of hay nets called Hangover Hay Nets, and she went to get it patented. And I thought that was really cool how she, came up with something that, hay nets have been around forever, but she found a way to improve a product that every single horse owner needs, especially if you're hauling to horse shows. And so I talked to her more about it, and because I told her I had this idea. And I mean, this was probably 3 years before I finally decided to jump and start making my flex roller curb straps. So, and she kind of gave me, her patent attorney's name and number, just told me, that you need to go find a patent attorney. You need to um, establish a LLC, a business, website, etc. Sorry, my dog is barking downstairs. That's Stetson, by the way. But but I and I talked to one of my best friends, James Morgan Rayburn, and she was like, "Oh, this could be a cool little side hobby." And I was like, "Yeah, it could. Like, let's just see how it goes." And like I said, I made a couple to ride on when I was training full time back in Georgia. I rode several of my horses in it, like Heavily Red, Designer Rocket, Dash to First Prize, and they all got along with it really well. But they all broke eventually because I went to Hobby Lobby just to kind of like build some sort of prototype apparatus, and I was like, okay, well, I'll come back to this and make this better later on. But then, like I said, whenever I was in Atlanta and I was burned out from the horse industry, the horse industry kind of chewed me up, spit me out in a major way. And it was very eye opening. And kind of wanted to be done with the horse industry for a little while. So that's why I went to Atlanta, which I swore I would never go to. I'm not a city girl whatsoever, but when nothing's going right, you go left, right? So that's what I did. That was the left move, was Atlanta. And that's, I had this basket of from the Hobby Lobby beads, the leather string, and I kept it in my room. And I had like two or three other roommates at the time, and just going in and out of the house every day. I was working, had to be at work 7:15, leave work 5:30. 5 days a week, and it was grueling. I was a recruiter for a government and IT staffing company, and it was a lot and not very rewarding. But yeah, it was eye opening. But I kept seeing this basket in my room every single time I come home or leave for work, and I was like, there's a reason I haven't thrown this away. There's something about, maybe I need to just try to make these again. Maybe it could just be a little extra income, because I was making $500 a week and it was peanuts. I was hardly surviving. My parents were having to help me out with rent, and I was 28 years old at the time. So I was just kind of like, I have got to get my life together. And I knew I didn't want to train horses anymore. I was not going back to that. I just PTSD from that not happening for the public anyways. So I finally, it took me getting robbed, being like 3 wrecks in Atlanta. And yeah, Atlanta's not such a great city in that aspect. But I was sitting in my cubicle one day and I was like, you know what? I need to go learn how to make these leather straps, and finally just figure out, because whatever I was making before was not working. And so I Googled leather shops near me and found Tandy Leather, and then went there. And I started paying a guy after hours, because by the time I got off work and would get there, which is in Lithia Springs, Georgia, which is 40 minutes away, they were closing. So I had this really nice gentleman that offered to stay afterwards and teach me the first couple steps on how to cut leather, dye leather, stamp it, and turn it, put buckles on it, rivets, and turn it into a strap, and then connect it to an apparatus that would string the beads. And from then, I started kind of sharing with people, telling people I'm doing this, and they're like, "Oh, I think it'd be a really good idea." So I had some prototypes that I sent out to like Nicole and Brett Monroe. They're really good friends of mine, and they were like, "Sure, we'll be your guinea pigs. They'll try it," which is fantastic, because they're very well known in the industry. And I sent some out to Kelsey and Jenny out in California, and the feedback was really good. But before I did all that, before I ever sold one, I had a patent attorney that I talked to. And let me back up a little bit, because I do feel like this is also a very important key factor to this. So Nicole Walker did give me her patent attorney's info. But I didn't understand the importance of that. And honestly, I was not about to file a patent if it weren't for Jackie at Jobs Tack. I went down 2023 to Perry, Georgia for a youth world, and I had a bag of my curb straps after I had a couple lessons and made them. And I took them down there to see what businesses would be interested in selling them, because I was clueless. I didn't know. I was like, surely somebody interested, right? And Jackie, I struck a conversation with her, and she's from Florida, and she was up there, and she said, "These are great. They are going to be copied in a heartbeat, and you will be devastated." She put them back in my bag. She closed the bag, and she said, "Come back to me after you have a patent on these." She said, "Go find a patent attorney right now." And had I not done that, I would have been so screwed right now. So I promised her too. I was like, once I start wholesaling and have a manufacturer, that she'll be the first person I contact. And since I just got my patent approved and literally had my issued number delivered yesterday, I sent her
Wow.
an email last week, and I told her, "Here I am, Jackie. Like, okay." And I have manufacturers now locally, so I'm like, "Okay, if you want to be, my first wholesale deal, here we are." And so we've been emailing back and forth. So, but
Wow.
that was a key part of this story, because she kind of saved my tail on that.
Yeah. Well, what I think is so fun when it comes to learning entrepreneurial stories, specifically ones in which you're manufacturing a physical product, is the origin story of the OG prototype. A few months ago, I visited with Nick Leica, who invented the Leica bell. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a rubber bell designed to replace the bells used on bull ropes. So it was really cool. But his story, he, more or less did a similar thing. He molded his first bell in his garage. So hearing you talk about going to Hobby Lobby and Tandy Leather, coming up with your first prototype is just so cool to me to see, that idea in action almost. So obviously you've caught a lot of momentum since your OG Hobby Lobby prototype.
Oh
What does
yeah.
the process look like when it comes to finding a manufacturer and someone who kind of gets it when it comes to turning your idea into a physical product?
Right. So before, like I said, just recently I started, finding manufacturers, just because I was hand making. I've been hand making all of them. I still am hand making them. I have like 50 orders downstairs. I still have to go. But because I didn't start, working with a manufacturer until about a month ago, I had looked into some, and a lot of them were overseas. Nicole Walker with Hangover Hay Nets gets hers made over in China, and she told me it's a lot more, cost efficient over there than made in the U.S. But it's kind of worked out that I've waited, because of the tariffs and everything right now. Like, a lot of people are struggling with overseas things being made, but I just never 100% felt sure that I wanted to jump on board with some, trust in somebody with my product. Cause I've lost a lot the last couple of years, like a lot. And this is kind of like my baby. And this is just something I don't like to hand the reins over to anybody, or I'm very careful about it. Because I never knew this was going to get this big. And it's something I care so much about. So I'm like, okay, who's going to be the right person to be able to transfer and get manufacturing done? Because I do need help. Like it's gotten to the point where I cannot keep up with the demand. My turnaround time right now is at least 2 weeks. Which is, people say, a good problem to have, but it is very stressful because just me being as a rider and a barrel racer, like when I order something for my horse, I want it like yesterday.
Mhm.
So I understand that. So there's all these awesome Facebook groups, and here in Auburn, Alabama, there's one called Auburn Horse People, and I made a post saying that I needed some help making some paracord straps, which is something Trisha Aldridge with Red Hot Barrel Horses actually. She's been a major influence on the story as well, if you've seen the post. But she has asked me to create some paracord Boca curb straps. So I'm like, okay, that's one more thing I have to learn. And I got on YouTube, sat there for 2 hours, and throwing it across the room. I'm like, this is terrible. Like I sent a picture to Trish. She's like, oh, I like that. I said, it's not. No, I'm not sending you this. We have to go make this better. And so I made a post, literally just asking, can anyone teach me how to like braid paracord? Because like I don't know how. I'm gonna try to tackle this. Well, then this girl named Maddie reached out to me, and she told me she works with another girl that has a company. They both work for the university here, but they are starting a company for manufacturing, and they do something with the kids here that are in school. You know what Shark Tank is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, Auburn University has their version, but it's called Tiger Cage.
Oh, cool.
It's so cool. Like I mean, I didn't know I was going to be an entrepreneur by any means, but I was like, oh man, when I was a student here, I would love to done that, but I was just horse trainer mode then. But she put me into contact with Shay, and I'm like, I think they're fourth or fifth client now, but they build a lot of the products for the students in Tiger Cage, all the young entrepreneurs in college that already know they want to be entrepreneurs, which is so cool. And they're local, and we're all Auburn people, which is, if you know anything about Auburn University, it's all Auburn family, which is fantastic. And they have made my life so just like less stressful with like, okay, I was like, can you do this? Can you do that? And I'll show them how to make it, like, oh yeah, no problem. And they'll have something for me like the very next day. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's been cool. And it's going to get more, I can hand the reins over to them more. And we can have them more mass produced. That way I can go to more shows, set up booths, also control the online sales where they're happy. People in person are happy. And that way I'm not just killing myself, also trying to go and compete on my fraternity cult this year.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to have an idea. Obviously, it's gaining momentum and becoming well received from the industry. But once you have a product and especially a developed relationship with a manufacturer, now it's time to kind of put the tires to the road and start marketing, which obviously you've done an exceptional job at marketing your product. But what are some of the strategies that you have used in the last year and a half to get your product out there and make people aware of it?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, one of the best things, because I was clueless and I was pre-vet, could never pass organic chem, changed to ag communications major, which helped to a degree, but I really didn't have that many marketing skills whatsoever. And I mean, I was already really good on my phone with just social media, taking horse videos. I'd make some cool edits back when like Vine was a thing. If anybody remembers that, yeah, that just shows my age, but that was a long time ago. But I still didn't understand like the algorithm even when it changed the last couple of years. So I was like, I gotta go get some help. And after watching YouTube videos and reading or listening to audiobooks, I don't really have time to sit down and read, but while I'm driving a lot, I'll listen to audiobooks. And I came across a book called The 1%, and it's by Ryan Daniel Moran. And after I listened to it literally 3 times in full, he has a website called capitalism.com where it's a membership called the 1%. And if you join it, it helps other entrepreneurs. That's what I was saying. On StreamYard is also where I listen to a lot of my classes when they have live webcasts. And that has kind of helped steer me in the right direction on where to post, when to post, how much to post, how important reviews are, how to get reviews, how to engage with your followers. And the number one thing is email marketing, which a lot of people don't even think about, but email marketing drives so many of my sales. And this class that I take teaches that. So I have been in this class since last June, and I'll listen to it while I'm making curb straps or watch videos. And they have conferences and such. I hope to go in person one day, but they have talked about honestly kind of picking one platform and staying with it. Well, I'm really on Facebook and Instagram a bunch. So I was like, I'll just combine the two. And then I got to one point where I was like, I think it was after Youth World. I had already started a TikTok account, didn't really understand how to make it. That was kind of a younger generation. And at Youth World, I had a lot of kids come into my booth saying, "Oh, I've seen these on TikTok. Oh my gosh!" Like 90% of the kids that came in there said something about TikTok, and I was like, I got to market more on that. So what I do now, and what really started helping, was first the meta ads. Whenever I put those together, and Rocket Donkey, Kennedy Smith and her dad really helped me out with understanding how that all worked. And the meta ads, and then going from TikTok, I post on TikTok to Instagram to Facebook. So anytime I post, I hit TikTok first, then Instagram to Facebook. That way it covers all the platforms, and I don't even bother with Twitter/X. I don't know, just
I
know
don't blame you.
yeah, that's enough. And then my email marketing, I'll send out maybe one personal one every 2 months to kind of update people.
Mhm.
But other than that, I have automations through a website called Klaviyo, and it learns my customers. It has learned me. And I obviously approve the automations, so I know it's going to my customers, and they can actually respond, and then I can type them back a personal email or something. So it's very engaging. So it's not just marketing just to like, oh, go buy this, go buy that. It's no, it's like, here's a problem that you could be having if you're a rider, and here's how we solve it. And then here's, some fun content showing like us traveling down the road, or here's, some top tier riders like Leslie Smallgo and Carly Otero and Dusky Lynn Hall. I sponsor all three of those,
Mhm.
and they are riding in them consistently and love them. And so just promoting that more has really, just had engagement and followers, and a lot more people, curious about, these really do work.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting when you hear successful business owners tell their stories. So often relationships seem to be at the crux of their success. And that really seems to be what you have done in creating these genuine but strategic partnerships with athletes who are using and loving your product, but also online creators who have an audience to get that out to your target market. What have been some of the things you've learned from fostering those relationships and kind of like almost outsourcing some of your marketing workload?
So like how I just make connections in the industry and just
Yeah.
how to keep cultivating those.
Yes.
Well, just honestly, when I first made my first post, like, I gotta go find people that'd be more interested in this. Now, just from my horse background, I had the advantage of already knowing people like Kelsey Treehorn, and people that I met through her, other amazing riders like Ashley Schaefer, Joy Wargo, Jolie Montgomery, and then through Nicole and Brett, meeting Craig Brooks. And I just started emailing them and just being like, hey, can I send you something to try? Just, just try it. In the horse industry. So that's helped with that. And the feedback has been really good. And because most anybody was curious if it's a new piece of equipment, especially us as trainers. Most people are willing to try it, and if they like it, great. Like, and I'll send more. If they don't like it, and that's totally understandable. My curb shop's not a end all be all. There's so many like factors that go into training a barrel horse. um, but as for more of the business side of it and entrepreneurship, such like Kennedy Smith and Rocket Donkey, with and her dad, and their entire family, which I just am so blessed to have met. I make sure that if they're pouring into me, I pour back into them. So I promote their clothing. I promote anytime I'm riding or I'm with them, I'm trying to take pictures. I tag them in things. And like Kennedy even invited me to come out and do a collab with them with Jared Searcy, who's the real cowboy who does amazing work. We went up to North Carolina and did a whole photo shoot up there, and Kennedy was gracious enough to let me, be combined with Rocket Donkey, and so we got a lot of content from that. And from there, we met up in Vegas. They let me help share the booth along with Master Saddles, which I was fortunate enough to meet Andy and Blair McClure in Georgia. So while I was in that cubicle for those miserable 12 months, my horses were a little over an hour away. I had a mare and my gelding, now Abby, who's my pretty colt, and I maybe got to them once or twice a week. Like, it was awful. And if I did go ride, I wouldn't get back till like 12 a.m. But so that was a lot. But they stayed at Andy and Blair's place, which Andy is a sales rep for Master Saddles. And they also put on the shows, a big barrel racing shows here. It's called MR Productions. And so they're very well known here. And so they've, helped me out tremendously. And back in, for example, back in October, I was invited to go out to the Master Saddles party where Emily Beisel would be and Leslie Smallgo, which I already had my curbs with Leslie at the time, just trying them. She wasn't signed on for a contract yet with me being a full time sponsor, but I had not been able to meet Emily yet. So I was like, well, absolutely love to come out there. But also, while I did that, I contacted Kelsey, and then my friend Morgan and we took our horses because her horse was actually already trained by Kelsey. That's where he originally came from, and then my colt I bought from Kelsey. And since I lived out there, keeping that relationship, I said, well, you know what? We'll knock out two birds with one stone. I went out to there for the Master Sales party, got to meet Emily, show her my curb straps, which she ended up running in them at the NFR on Chongo and Chewy, which was really cool. And then I also got to go ride with Kelsey and, give her some more products. And she helped me out with my riding and kind of helped me get back on track because I've been kind of wacky since I work there, just as such things, if you don't use it you lose it technically. So just building on that, and then whenever I got to the NFR, Master Saddles Andy was so gracious to, and Miss Patty let me put my curbs in their booth along with Rocket Donkey. And while I was there, that's where I met Dusky Lynn Hall. I literally, it's kind of a funny story with Dusky, and how I'm very much outgoing and just I'm not afraid to walk up to anybody. And my parents have told me ever since I was little, they're like, that's a really good trait to have. I never really understood that until, because I thought anybody could do that. I mean, when you're a young
Yeah.
kid,
No, not the
anybody can
case.
talk to anybody. Like, what's wrong with that? How hard is that? Apparently it is to some people, and I didn't know that. So I've been waiting on Dusky to come up to the Master Saddles booth because they sponsor her, and I am back and forth between Rocket Donkey booth and Master Saddles booth, and they're, thank goodness, only 3 rows away because Cowboy Christmas is massive. And I was coming back to check back in with Master Saddles, and one of the girls there, Maddie, she said, "Oh, you just missed Dusky and her mom." I'm like, "Where?" So I took off running with curb straps in hand, business cards in the other, and went running around looking for them. And I was like, okay, she's in Western attire, just try to find her. So after like panicking a little bit, I was like, no, I just missed my one chance at meeting them. Okay. And then I turn around and boom, I see she and her mom, and I just go, Dusky. They both turn around. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. I was like, hey, Boca Brand, Erin, curb straps, just like here. and it was really funny because they probably thought I was absolutely crazy, but they were so nice. But it turns out that Dusky is the mother and Dusky Lynn is the daughter. It's a family name, and both of their names are Dusky, and the grandmother's name is Dusky. So 11-year-old Dusky Lynn is the one who goes on, runs Wally and Isa and all them. So it was just really funny. So I got them to come back to the booth and started telling more about my curb straps, and they loved the idea behind it. And they were willing to go try it and send me videos of it. And so she was running there at the other show that was going on. I forget the name. It's not All American. There's a big Vegas show for barrel racers that goes on at the same time while the NFR is going on. Totally forgot the name of it, but she was competing out there, and she goes after we say goodbye, take some pictures. So nice meeting them. I get her mom's number, send them on their way, and I go back to working. I get a video a couple hours later, and she's at her trailer already putting the curb straps on her horses, and her mom's videoing all this. I'm just kind of like, okay, this is cool. This is so cool. And they've been so good at like just sending me things. They just bought a horse. I just saw them last week, which I have a very funny video of her and her crew coming out here this either today or tomorrow. So stay tuned on that. But they've just been awesome about sending me videos. And they just, the most recent one her mom just sent me was this morning of one of the horses that they bought out of the Ruby Buckle sale, already having a curb strap on. So yeah, it's just fun. It's just more relationships. And so I guess me just making sure, I, like I said, pour into people that pour into me. And I want the industry to have something that's better. It's not just buy my product, just like I am a horse trainer. I am a barrel racer. I've done multiple events. Like I understand how, people in their horses work and like how sometimes you need better equipment. And so I keep that in mind anytime I'm talking to somebody. That's why I don't try to push it too much on people about how, this is, going to fix your horse's problem. It's going to turn your horse into a winner. No, it's a contributing factor to tack that's going to, benefit your horse. And I think people really appreciate that. Also coming from just, trainer background, horse person, we all have a love, in this industry for horses. And so it's been easy meeting people, and I can't wait to see who else I meet this year. I mean, I've met all kinds of people. I mean, meeting you at the Cowgirl 30 under 30 gala, like that whole event that weekend. And that was incredible. I mean, so whenever I applied for it back in the fall, so I know you had to be in business for 2 years, I think, consecutively when you applied.
Something like that.
Yes, there was like a limit, but so I didn't make it. Technically, I didn't, but they invited me to still come out there. So I was like, well, absolutely. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna meet
Yeah,
as many people as I can.
absolutely.
Because I was only in business about a year at that time. And so going out there and meeting Ken and Callie and you and so many other amazing people has just been incredible. And I just, every opportunity, if I have an opportunity to go make a new connection, to step out of my comfort zone and go do that, I do it. Like,
Mhm.
no questions asked, like, let's just go and do it. And so, and 9 times out of 10, it's really beneficial.
Yeah. Well, you are a true testament to putting yourself out there and getting to reap the rewards of that. What advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe one specifically in the Western industry who's looking to put themselves out there or put a new product on the market?
First, if it's a new product, contact a patent attorney. That's that's the first thing.
Period.
Go contact a patent attorney immediately. Even if your product is not even physically built yet. If you have an idea and you think it's worth something, go find a patent attorney. I mean, contact me. I will be happy to advise you to mine. And he wasn't exactly a horse guy, but I've taught him a lot, but he's very knowledgeable and he's awesome. So that's the first thing I would do. Second, once you have that established, just start. There's never going to be a good time to start. I sat on this for 6 years total since I had my first idea. And looking back now, I wish I would have started earlier, but I think there were things in life that pushed me to where like I finally had to get to a spot where nothing was going right in life. So go left, hence Boca Brand. So you just got to start. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel like, oh, this is meant to happen. It's just like, it's going to be messy. It's going to be late nights, early mornings. Just, it's going to feel tough and lonely. I will say the number one thing whenever I started this, I was the most lonely I've ever been in my entire life. Um, so that kind of, helped me push myself to figure out who I was, and which I feel is part of the journey. It makes you really dig deep and find who you really are. So if you're passionate about something and you feel like you have something to contribute to the world, and especially in the equine industry, and you love it, don't be afraid to stick your neck out there, because majority of people aren't going to. And some people just are wired to be, if I don't know, what I always just something that really irked me that I never quite understood. Like I turned 31 in 3 days, and single Pringle over here. Not really worried about having kids. It's just, I mean, if it happens, great. But and love my friends that have gotten married, have gone on that track. Even my sisters. But a lot of people think that once you graduate high school, you go to college, you meet somebody in college, you get married, you have kids. Obviously like going through life stages. And that sounds great. But that's something that was never fully something that I felt like I needed to do, wasn't pulled to. Like my idea when I first got started, just in the equine industry is like I was gonna be a horse trainer. You couldn't tell me differently. I had people tell me not to do it, and that just ticked me off and was like, I'm gonna try even harder. Like my idea was try to be the next Cassie Maury, the next Brittany Posey Tanasi. Like um that was kind of my mindset until, like I said, the industry kind of chewed me up, spit me out. So that's where entrepreneurship bloomed, because I still had this love for horses, and life is messy. You don't get out of it unscathed. And I really can say this has made me grow up a bunch. So anyone that's wanting to get into this, it is so hard. I work now more than I ever did when I was training full time. And I was whipped then, but like I spend more hours, late nights. I don't sleep much. I had to kind of dial it back and get more help last year because I started having horrible migraines, and I even got vertigo, and I was down for 3 days before the state show last year just because I was pushing my body to the limit. So it's grueling, but it is so worth it. It is so worth it. I cannot imagine who I would be or what I would be doing right now had this not, had I not taken the leap and just dived into this. So, and anybody, and there's no ceiling. Anybody can do this. Anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur, especially with social media and all the free marketing you can do nowadays, like anyone can join. And that's the cool thing about other entrepreneurs, is that I have yet to find a single entrepreneur that is not like, here, let me give you a hand and help you out.
Mhm.
One of them being Trisha Aldridge. She was one of the first people that kind of put me on the map and took a chance on me, and just happy to give advice and just be very helpful. And so that's been really cool, because
Mhm.
we all have seen her marketing. It's incredible, and on her, with her amazing stud. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I'd say. Like, just start, just do it, but go about it in a way that's going to protect you, because once you get the ball rolling, it's hard to slow down.
Yeah. Well, in the last year and 9 months or so, since you've been in business, you've made a lot of momentum so far. What's next for you, and what's next for Boca Brand?
Ha. Well,
That's the
I
question of the hour, huh?
Well, I actually already have a new product. I have not released it yet. It's still in the testing phases right now. I actually just let Dusky Lynn have one last week to try out. So I filed for a whole new patent on a whole new product under Boca Brand. So I'll be coming out with that shortly. I don't want to post too much about it or talk about it too much. It's already technically protected because I want to see if I can make it better. Just because once I feel like I post it, everybody's going to want one. So we're still testing it out a little bit. I need some more feedback with it because I only have my one colt, so I need to go be tried on a multitude of horses first. I did just come out with the paracord straps with Shay and Maddie, my manufacturers. Awesome. They got so many done, so I'm about to have those up on the website once we got a few more of those done. I did a poll, and a lot of people are interested in that. Youth World's coming up in July, so I'm very excited for that. Besides Trisha helping me out last year and getting my name more out there, Youth World really put us on the map, which was just, it exploded. We have not slowed down since Youth World last year. That was our first 10K month. Wow. And it has not been less than that since. So that's just been very cool. So as the business scales and grows, I'm constantly, and I already have some other ideas in my head. One thing at a time is what I have to try to tell myself, because I can't do everything at once, but go ahead and get the ball rolling on other, product ideas and collabs that I want to do. And I want to travel more. Like, I think once I have manufacturing up and going full time, where I'll still do custom orders myself, like the Boca gems, where like the turquoise beads and the pretty buckles, like I'll do all that. But like the standard, Boca lead on chain, Boca lead on leather, things like that will be, manufactured to where I can grab and go, send those out, or take, 100 or, to 500 with me to a horse show. I think it'll help it where I can talk to more people, travel more, and do a lot more social media, because I'm one woman circus over here when it comes to social media and selling and all that.
Yeah. Well, I could pick your brain for hours. You have such an inspiring story, but what is something we haven't touched on that you'd like people to know either about you or the brand?
Where I got the name.
Oh gosh, yes, tell us.
Well, where it all started. So I had a beautiful border collie. Her name was Boca. She was actually a border Aussie mix. I got her from a girl, Paige Willis. And Paige I met in middle school, my 8th grade year of middle school, and she had a dog named Lizzie. And Lizzie had a litter of puppies, and I was out there riding with Paige and her cousin Summer, and rolled up one night to her house. It was on the weekends. My parents would drop me off to go stay with her. She's when we'd go to barrel races, and she'd teach me how to barrel race. And this little puppy comes running up to the door of this car, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's adorable. So I ended up hanging out with this puppy all weekend and love her, absolutely love her. Well, my parents come to get me on Sunday to go back home, because I live 30 minutes away. And I already had in my head, okay, don't ask. They're not gonna, just parents are not gonna say yes to this adorable fluffy dog. And it was my mom who actually just surprised me tremendously, because she looked over my dad. We got in the truck, we were getting ready to leave, and I've already kind of hinted like, oh, I'd love to bring her home, we could have another one, guys, because we already had a few dogs at the house. And mom looks over at dad, she's like, but Chris, she's so cute. And he's like, go get her. I was like, what? I had no idea this would be my best friend for the next 15 years. And my sister actually came up with the name. So we're from Florida. And there's Boca Grande, Boca Raton. My dad's avid about fishing. There's a lot of really good tarpon fishing down there. And my sister, Alex, my middle sister, said that, the name Boca would be really cute for, a dog, whatever. I was like, Boca. Yeah, I like it. Let's call her Boca. So Boca was, that's when Boca started. And she was with me through middle school, high school, college. After college, I was in Georgia, Texas, she's been in Colorado with me, all over the country. Everyone knows her because she was just my shadow. She's like a daggum goldfish, though. She was so polite, easy going, but she was just so much fun, and had been with me through all these tremendous, life stages, the good, bad, and the ugly. And whenever I got to Atlanta, and, this is whenever I was just a Hail Mary is what Atlanta was, because I knew I was not going to like it. But whenever I was training horses full time, I was with her all day, every day. And I knew she was getting older. She just turned 15, and she was, having some arthritis or whatever. But it was probably when I started working at cubicle, I didn't see her as much, as whenever her, health really declined. So that, after getting in multiple wrecks, getting robbed, and then Boca, whenever I got back, I was gone to Montana I left her about 6 days and came back, and it was her time. So, and I was ready and she was ready. So I took her to the vet and, held her and said my goodbyes. And my parents flew in the next day and got her and took her home and buried her. So she's back at home, which is really nice. I can technically go visit her. And my parents actually have one of her puppies. So I mean, everyone in my family like cried over this dog. Like she was the best thing ever, and especially all my friends too. So she was amazing. So that was just kind of like the double whammy throughout the years, just kind of like, could things get any worse? So whenever I finally took the leap of faith and realized that something's got to change in life, like something has to change, and I didn't have her anymore. I do have Stetson. If you ever see my videos, see a big Doberman, that's Stetson, who, funny enough, Boca hated him. She hated him, but I told her whenever we moved to Georgia, I just said, you're going deaf, and I'm moving to a place in Georgia I've never been to before, and it's close to Atlanta. It was when I started training horses for the guy in Georgia. And I was like, we need a bigger dog, and we've grown up with Dobermans, so that's how I got him. But anyway, so flash forward back to Atlanta, and I was struggling with a name. I think originally I started calling him like Color Curves, and even Jackie at Jobs Tax was like, find something more punchy. And I was like, you're right. Yeah, I gotta find something more punchy. Well, then I was like, well, it needs to mean something. And so that's what I was like, well, I could call it Boca, Boca Brand. And ironically enough, Boca in Spanish means mouth. So it connects to an apparatus that goes in a horse's mouth. So I was like, huh,
Perfect.
okay. And then I got on ChatGPT, started playing with it, and Boca Brand kept coming back. And I was like, that's it. That's Boca Brand. And I literally got pen and paper on a sticky note. I still have it, and drew out my logo. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want it to look like. I put it on Canva, and that's the logo that you see now. And it just stuck. And it just, now, so every single time I go to a horse show or I do set up a booth, I have her picture and a little picture frame of us. And so when people ask, because I get that question all the time, how'd you get the name Boca? I just go right here, and
Yeah.
show her picture. And so actually, here's one of them. This
Oh,
is her.
that's awesome. Well, what a
Yeah.
great way to honor her legacy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's full circle.
Yeah. Well, Erin, I cannot tell you how much I have enjoyed this conversation, learning more about you and also your brand. I am anxious to follow along with the success that is sure to come in the future. But thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your story today.
Yeah. Thank you, Rebel. I really appreciate it.
Well, once again, that's Erin Christopher with Boca Brand. Of course, we will include links to connect with Erin and Boca Brand on social media in the show notes of today's podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share with a friend. Or if you'd like to watch the episode and see a photo of Precious Boca, you can watch the episode as well on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.